Used to say to me, you need to hit your rock bottom. I used to get really offended at that. You know, I've been on the streets, I've done things, you know, I've been where angels fear to tread. And mum and dying, you don't understand, I've got the delirium tremens. Shouldn't get out my car now, do you know what I mean? But I knew that I'd probably end up dead.
Hi, hello, how are you? And welcome to today's episode of Crying in the DMs. You are now watching an award-winning podcast. Firstly, thank you to everyone that voted. Sorry I couldn't be there to accept the award. I'm just a bell end. But it did mean the absolute world to me. And I am humbly joined today by one of my closest friends and comrades, Lewis, who is going to tell everybody about his phenomenal journey from alcoholism, addiction, into being one of, and I'm not even just saying this, not even just licking your ass for on camera, one of the most genuinely wonderful people I've ever met.
Thank you.
Got a big mush bag. Tell us, Lewis.
Thank you for having me on. Do you know what I mean? It's bottom of my heart, like I'm really grateful. Like just before the podcast starts, you know, I was literally saying to my mum 4 weeks ago, you know, I was watching a podcast and I said, do you know what, I'd love to be on one of them podcasts, mum. And I've always wanted to be on a podcast, so it's like God's definitely working in my life, you know.
God's working in your life.
Yeah.
God is central in your life, mate.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things I want to talk about today because, you know, I don't necessarily talk religion on my podcast a lot, but the way you talk about religion really inspires me. And I think when people are at the rock bottom, they need a little bit of faith, and maybe someone will watch this and have a little bit more faith in themselves because of the way that you have faith. So just want to start by saying, Lewis, where did rock bottom start for you? Let's just get right in at the deep end.
Well, I always thought rock bottom was externally, and what I've come to learn now is it's internal. I wanted to get sober from a very early age. I realised I was an alcoholic from the age of 17, and I had many attempts at getting sober, and I could never really kind of grasp it. And everyone used to say to me, you need to hit your rock bottom. I used to get really offended at that because I used to think to myself, like, you know, I've been on the streets, I've done things, you know, I've been where angels fear to tread. Do you know what I mean? And it's like a lot of these people saying this to me, I'd never been there. So now I understand what they meant. So my rock bottom was, I was on a relapse for 3 weeks, and I'd always had like little hallucinations coming off a drink before, like withdrawals. I used to say they were DTs, but they wasn't really DTs. But this time what happened was, my mum was staying in me flat, and I was in me alcoholism. And it was just, my flat was completely filled with alcohol. I had all the amount of alcohol you could, you know, to kill an elephant, you know, and I had money on me as well. But something was different. I felt my body shutting down this time. So I said to my mum, I need to get to hospital. And she told me I'm being soft. She didn't understand. And because I'd put her through so much pain, she drove me to a place in St Helens called Finger Post, and she got me a Greg's pasty and said, just get out down here, you'll be all right. And I knew deep in my heart I wasn't going to be all right. And I'd previously tried to get a detox from Wigan and Widnes and Warrington, but because I'd already been in there so many times in my alcoholism, they kind of just said, oh, here he goes again, do you know what I mean? We're sick of treating him. There's real sick people in here. So they never used to help me. You know, they'd send me back out on the streets, but this time I knew I was really bad.
Wow.
So what happened was, I was at the Greg's in Finger Post. My mum kicked me out the car, and she said, you know, because I threw the pasty across the room saying, Mum, I'm dying, you don't understand, I've got the delirium tremens. Shouldn't get out my car now, do you know what I mean? But I got out the car, a little voice came in my head, and I know it was God's voice now, and it said, go to the Royal Hospital, maybe they can help you. And I ended up going on the train to the Royal Hospital. And went into the Royal. Do you mind if I take my jumper off?
No, mate, you go for gold.
Yeah, I went into the Royal, I got to the Royal, and I had money to go into Liverpool City Centre and get drunk, but I knew that I'd probably end up dead if that happened. So I went into the Royal, and they were the best hospital. But I started to hallucinate in there. It felt like all the A&E was staring at me. There were shadow people gripping my legs underneath.
Wow.
So I was begging them for Librium. I walked out and I had to get a drink because I thought I'm going to end up having a seizure here. The following next 3-4 days, this was real delirium tremens. I didn't know where I was in the hospital. I thought I was in, my mum and dad came to see me. I thought I was in a pub. I thought I was in Manchester.
Wow.
I was delusional. My bed was flying through, physically moving through walls. A young lad came over and poured cold water in an hallucination on me. And I felt the water on my face. It was like really real. And I was tormented by demonic entities for 6 days. Shadow people. But me rock bottom, I'll tell you me rock bottom. So what happened was, you know, I realised, this is real delirium tremens now. I thought my mum and dad had signed me over to a care home. Because I said, we'll have to go now, Lewis. I didn't realise I was in A&E.
Yeah.
The DTs were kicking in.
For those watching that don't know what a DT is, could you explain that?
DTs is called delirium tremens. It's severe alcohol withdrawal, and 40% of people who go through it die. But if you get treatment, I think the percentage is, don't quote me on this, but 6 to 7%. You know, people don't realise how dangerous it is coming off alcohol. There's 2 drugs that can kill you, coming off alcohol and benzodiazepine. And the hallucinations, like people think DTs is like shakes like that. You know, and you do get them. I really got them, but people don't realise that it takes you. I believe, in my own personal opinion, it opens up a portal to hell, because the things I've seen and the things that I've heard other people see. It's like, it's very common to see a figure called the top hat man.
Okay.
Before top hats even it was invented, and before shadow, you know, before you know, people from all over the world have seen this top hat man, and I seen him in my room before I went to the hospital. It was about the 4th day, and I can still feel the rock bottom in my heart now. It was like tearing away at my heart, and a young girl coming to me. She was a student nurse, very pretty, attractive, and I wasn't even interested in her. And that was my rock bottom. And I was on the hospital bed and she was like being quite like a bit flirtatious. She had a girlfriend and all that, and drips were coming out my arm. And I'll tell you why it was my rock bottom, because I realised at that moment she was like talking to her colleagues outside the hospital room. She was saying stuff like, "Oh, we're gonna go Costa after work," and stuff like that. And she was a similar age to myself, and I realised that in that moment that alcohol had imprisoned me, stripped me, and I was a slave to alcohol. And I'd never had any of them social graces she had, like going out to a mate. And I also realised when I wasn't attracted to her that, like, I want a life where I can kind of be attracted to a woman and kind of, you know, settle down with a woman. And I realised in that moment that alcohol had stripped so much from me, like, and I was completely isolated from society. I didn't know who I was. And what happened was, a man from Birkenhead, who I always, you know, looked up to. He was an ex-alcoholic who had an experience like me, and he sat in my room and he told me how he got better.
How did he get better?
He got better through the 12 steps. He had a rock bottom like me, but then he carried it on throughout the 12 steps. And I realised in that moment, you know, because loads of people had told me that before about the 12 steps, but it's almost like my ego was stopping me from accepting it. It's like I could hear it all day long, but it's like I'd shiver with antagonism. Do you know what I mean? Kind of like when you mention God to someone who doesn't believe. It's like a revelation you get. It's like you can't intellectualise it, you know? So when I seen him, I realised if he can do it, I can do it. And that was kind of when I came to believe that there was a power greater than myself. And it wasn't, you know, kind of the belief in God at first, because even though I was a Christian then, it was like, if he can do it, I can do it. I realised when I got out of that hospital that I needed to put some action into my recovery, you know.
What was the first sort of 2 weeks like as you were in recovery?
The first 2 weeks I thought I had wet brain, so on the 6th day, I'll tell you a little story. I was in the Liverpool Royal Hospital. I just ran out the hospital. I was mentally gone in my head with what I've just witnessed.
Just ran out into the street?
Ran out into the street, and I was insane. And I thought, this is what people, you know, ex-alcoholics talk about when they say you lose your mind.
Yeah.
And I'd got to that point that I'd heard stories about people. I was crying my eyes out in the Catholic cathedral to God, but in my head I was like, he's not even real, he's not even listening. Why won't you help me, God? And it was like resentfully crying to him.
Yeah.
And I went out of the hospital and I said, I want to be like them uni students, God, I want to be like them. Why can't I be like them? And a voice came into my head and it said, not an audible voice, but it was my conscience, but it was God speaking, and it said, one day they're going to wish they had what you had. Now this is how I know God's real. So I ended up getting a sponsor. And I'm meeting him 3 months later in the same exact, not even 3 months, 2 months later in the same exact area that I seen them uni students.
Wow.
And he says that exact quote to me. He says, one day these students are going to wish they had what you had. And I can tell you...
The sponsor said that to you?
Yeah.
Had you ever told him?
I told him, yeah, he's not a Christian. He believes in the spirit of the universe, which is what I believe in, really. I believe God's the spirit in the universe. I believe he's always began. I believe he's got no end. I believe if you keep going back and back and back and back, what created this, what created that, you have to come to one specific point in creation. And he has that same conception, but he doesn't believe that this God has sent any revelation down to the earth. So he believes in the same God I believe in, really. But
he doesn't realise he does.
He doesn't realise he does, you know, because obviously people can be put off by, you know, religion. Yeah, he doesn't realise how simple my belief is. It's like I don't understand God any more than he does.
Yeah. You
know, I just obviously believe, you know, it came down in the person of Jesus Christ. You know, I believe that spirit exists in 3 people, three personas. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So that's the difference between me and him. Yeah.
So yeah, your first 2 weeks were pretty hectic. Then you ran out into the street. You went.
Yeah.
You thought you'd gone insane.
I was going into something called Korsakoff syndrome.
Yeah, I know what that is. Some people might not though, so feel free to explain.
I was so paranoid when I come out of hospital that I never thought I'd recover my brain back. I thought alcohol has done a toll on me now. I'm going to need to be locked up in a psychiatric ward. I was trying my best to get sectioned. When I was in alcoholism, I was that hopeless. I used to try, I'd go to A&E and beg them to section me because I knew my life was that unmanageable, not just drinking, but when I'd come off a drink, I couldn't make a doing of my life, addicted to pornography. I was an alcoholic. I just, everything I tried to do on my own power failed. My own resources failed me, and I thought, I'm weak. So I tried to go in A&E because I thought if I get myself locked away for 6 months and I get them little diazepams, I'll be all right. Do you know what I mean? And I'd get bored after 3 weeks being sectioned. I'd want to come out. And I'd always go back to alcohol, always. Yeah. And I just felt hopeless in the end. And I just thought, I'm just going to drink myself to death. But that wet brain was like people would talk to me and I was convinced, like so paranoid. It was kind of like cocaine psychosis.
Yeah.
I was convinced they were going to throw a punch at me at any minute. And these were like, even people from the church, you know. So I never thought I'd recover my brain into like normal thinking. And it recovered quite quick, to be honest, within 2 weeks. But the after effects when you have delirium tremens, your brain can be quite kind of, you're traumatised because...
Yeah. It's like a form of CPTSD.
Yeah.
You're constantly reflecting back on
yeah.
what you thought life was going to be like, and even the imaginary life that you had in your head, you can reflect on that constantly as well. Because what a lot of people watching won't realise is when you go through any sort of delirium, it's the ultimate paranoia.
Yeah.
But it's paranoia on steroids.
Yeah.
Because not only are you paranoid about real life, you're paranoid about the pretend life that you've created subconsciously, simultaneously in your head as well. How do you find like day-to-day life now? Do you ever watch people that are drinking and think you want to drink, or does that not ever come into it?
I'll be completely honest. Since doing the 12 steps, I've been restored to sanity around alcohol. And
okay.
There's a lot of misconceptions about the 12 steps. It came from something called the Oxford Group, which was a Christian Protestant movement. So people were having white light experiences, and that's how the 12 steps. They did change it to your own conception of God to make it all inclusive. But it's not like, you know, idol worship. It's kind of like when I went through the 12 steps with my sponsor, you know, if you take God out of the 12 steps, you wouldn't have a 12-step program. So it is all to do with God. And personally, I tried going to church and I tried doing it that route. And I always wondered, why wouldn't God just free me? Why wouldn't he just set me free and never let me drink again? And I realised, well, who would I be helping? I'm on the front line when I go to 12-step meetings.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So if God would have just freed me, I'd just be on the couch like I'm free. It'd be selfish.
Yeah. God took you from a prisoner to a soldier.
Yeah.
That's special.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's, you know, I had all sorts of early 2 weeks, she said. I didn't know who I was, honestly. And I'm not being flippant when I say this. I didn't even know if I was a man or a woman. Honestly, that's how much kind of my identity was stripped from me.
Yeah.
Didn't know whether I was gay or straight, honestly. That's how powerful, you know, this kind of identity was stripped from me.
Well, they say alcohol's a spirit, don't they?
Yeah.
It is a demon, you know, it is a demon, but not in a theological sense. It's a demon because it attacks the mind, it attacks the body, it attacks the spirit. And I always think, because obviously I don't drink, I'm completely sober of everything as well. And when I watch people drinking and they're doing it for enjoyment, I look at it very differently now. I won't shame them, you know, everyone's got their own choice. But if enjoyment for you is disassociating from your reality, it's something you've got to fix in your reality. You can't stray away from it, because the further you get from reality, the more you get into that delirium. And like you say, you lose all sense of identity. And I think it's really powerful what you just said. You didn't know if you were gay or straight, a man or a woman. You didn't know if you were an arse or a fucking elbow. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because your whole identity was, well, it's alcoholic personified, isn't it? It's your identity becomes what you're addicted to, because your addiction becomes your characteristics. Your characteristics then become a reinforcement of your inner demons. Just fucking about like a demon, aren't you? Go around everywhere.
Yeah, and I'll be honest with you, like growing up when I was in school, I got diagnosed with autism quite early on, and ADHD. And when everyone else was making friends in the playground, I used to walk around the playground in circles, and I wouldn't know how to mix. And I was so scared and self-centered that other people would see that I had no friends, so I'd wait for the teachers to go in on my break. Growing up, that kind of separation was always with me, so I could be in a group when I got a bit older, hanging around on council estates and stuff like that, and I could be in a group with 5 to 6 people, and they'd all be talking freely with each other. They'd all be talking like they all spoke the same language, and I'd say the exact same thing as my mates were saying, trying to fit in and make friends, and I was either bullied, rejected, and kind of, I thought, what is wrong with me? And I always thought all my life, what is wrong with me? And I got really deep with it, like self-esteem was horrific. Like I thought I was the only person in the world. Tell you how self-centered I was. I was that delusional. I thought that the God of the Bible wasn't the real God, and this God had only created me in the universe. Everyone else wasn't real, and everyone else was like demons against me. Do you get
Lewis,
what I mean?
you know how many people have that same delusion?
Oh, I'm glad to hear.
I promise you, I must have heard that about 100 times
Really?
doing the job that I do. Yeah, when people go into a certain state of like, it's not even psychosis. It's paranoia. It's disassociation. They will believe that they are the only person on the earth.
Yeah.
And that everyone else is created to test them, to destroy them, all this sort of
Yeah.
stuff, right? I've heard it so many times, and I've been there myself.
Have you?
I've been there. I remember I was probably about 22, and I was walking down the street, right?
Yeah.
And I was going through. I didn't think it was psychosis at the time, but I think looking back, it was probably psychosis. And I'd obviously been on a bit of a 10-day bender.
As you do, yeah.
As you do.
Standard.
Just a standard little 2 weeks in paradise, my friend. Do you know what I mean? And I was walking down the street, and there was this guy walking his dog, and there was a woman walking a dog, and they were both white dogs, but they were not the same dog. And I was walking down the street thinking, yeah, simulation's broken. Fucking idiots.
Yeah.
You give me 2 white dogs. And I was saying out loud, I know what you're doing. I know what you're doing. And you know when you think and you look back, you think, those people were looking at each other across me, probably thinking, what the fuck is wrong with that girl?
Yeah.
But to me, that just confirmed. Now they know I'm onto them.
Yeah.
I'm not going to see those people ever again. And it's that level of paranoia and disassociation from reality that does keep you trapped in your own world, because the more paranoid you get, the less comfortable you feel to tell people, hey, I think I'm in a game. Do you know what I mean? Or like, are you against me? Because you also believe, though,
Yeah.
you know what my most used phrase was for ages? Everybody is an NPC. And for those watching, that's a non-player character. I was the only character.
Yeah.
Entire
Everyone
world.
was against me.
Everyone.
Yeah.
So how did you, because obviously you've had relationships.
Yeah.
How did that go?
I'll be honest with you, my alcoholism, I missed out on a lot of relationships with women and stuff, because a lot of the women who I used to go with were 58, 59, to be honest with you. Like, they were alcoholics. And I used to prefer older women, to be honest with you, because I don't know if it was a mother figure, like, or whatever, because my mum was quite good to me growing up. I just think it was like kind of like an ego thing. Do you know what I mean? I wanted an older woman on me. I thought I was like a man. You know, I always had an old head on me, so when I first ever... I can date back. I've always been an obsessive person, collecting stuff, and I remember going into my nan's liquor cabinet at 7, getting liquor cabinets and pouring it off and drink at 7. Do you know what I mean? And then at 12, I had my first time getting drunk. And this is a God's honest truth. I was about halfway down the glass. It was a bottle of Smirnoff Ice. I was 12 years of age. I can tell you where I was, Queen's Diamond Jubilee. And when that alcohol hit my system, it was as if I met God. At 12, it was like, this is what I've been looking for all my life. And I believe if I would have been free at 12, not under my parents' provision, I would have drank every day at 12. So then when I got to 17, you know, and I lived on my own, things weren't going well at home, because a bit of me and my dad clashing.
Happens though, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Dads and lads.
Go in the shop at 6 in the morning. I'd go into blackouts, you see, and then I'd wake up in police stations and stuff. You know, so it's like, with the alcohol, like you said, it's like I still get the odd thought, wouldn't it be nice to have 4, but I can't physically do this. I've needed to do a 12-step program to get to this point, because in my, you know, alcoholic mind, I used to see like homeless people on the floor and think that they're living the life. But now I can look at alcohol, and the other day it went, oh, look at them all going for a night out, like, and quickly I could bring into my mind within 10 seconds, like, do you know what? I wouldn't even want to be in a pub anyway.
No.
There's nothing going on in the pub.
No.
Do you know what I mean? The lights are dark. Like, no one's talking sense. I'd rather be around people on ecstasy or a bit of speed, you know what I mean?
Fuck's sake, Lewis!
No, I don't take that, but I'm just saying, like, I just... You can't make sense out of them anyway, do you get what I mean? It's like, I'd rather be around, like, people who talk sense, do you get what I mean? I wouldn't be around... I'd rather be around that. I'm just, like, joking, but...
I know you are, don't worry.
It's Yeah, it's a miracle what's happened in my life, because I always cried out. I was always crying out, when's this going to end? When's this going to end? When's this nightmare going to be over with? And I thought I was going to die in that state. And I used to always say to my mum, Mum, I need help. I'd constantly say, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? What am I going to do? I'd panic and in a withdrawal.
Mm-hmm.
What am I going to do? What am I going to do? Constantly. And I'd openly say, there's no hope, Mum. There's no hope. And I knew deep down there was no hope.
How important was your mum?
She always stood by me those times where I had to let her go. She had to let me go, because, it was like she tried her best, but she kind of knew herself. She's not really a faith-based woman. I wasn't brought up a Christian. So she always tried the psychological route with me, and I was under cams and all that when I was growing up, and mental health teams. And the second part of me rock bottom, which I shared about the young girl coming in me hospital, the student nurse.
Mm-hmm.
The second part was I went to a place called Hollands Park a week after, which is a mental health kind of institute. Yeah. And I sat next to two really clever psychiatrists. I nearly put two things up at camera. Two really clever
the audience.
Two really clever psychologists. And I don't want to swear, but I do swear sometimes to give this emphasis, but I won't swear. Like, I'm trying not to swear.
You can have a go if you want. I swear all the time on my podcast.
These two psychologists looked at me like, we don't have a fucking clue what to do with you.
Did you just whisper the word fuck it?
Yeah. I slip up, do you know what I mean? But
Lewis, you're fine.
These two psychologists in Hollands Park, when I was telling them my problems, even when I was in the Royal Hospital, I had the alcohol nurse. These are meant to be experts on alcohol and psychology. And because they were coming from a psychological approach, they looked at me, and the look on their faces, we don't know how to help you. And previously, when I was sectioned, one of the top psychologists in the sectioning ward said to me, to my mum, there's not one medication on the face of this planet that can help him.
Wow.
And it was like the gates of hell clanged on me.
Wow.
Do you know what I mean? And
that's disgusting.
Do you know? I know what he meant now, though. Do you know what it's like? The psychological approach to my alcoholism wasn't going to help.
No, that's how you've took it.
You've
took it like that because you've got such a big heart, and you've got such a
thank you.
You've got so much faith in yourself now and in the world that's how you've taken it. He meant it exactly how he fucking said it, because he underestimated someone like you.
Yeah.
that's it. He meant it how it said it, but you didn't take it how he said it because you knew how you meant it. If you kick a person down, right, 10 times, and they get up every single time, that person has more endurance than the person punching. So the more people that punch you down only encourage you to get back up. So now every time you get back up, you're stronger. Because every time you set up and do a set up, you work on your abs. You're refining yourself, right? Yeah. So by the time you've sat up for the millionth time, you've got abs of steel. So it doesn't matter who tries to knock you back down. You've gotten used so much to getting back up that you're never going to stay there. And sometimes, and there's great psychologists, there's great therapists, there's great practitioners, right? But sometimes the practitioner only knows the textbook. Yeah. And fuck the textbook. You know, you can, I do not believe you can treat addiction unless you've got personal experience with addiction. I agree. Same with alcoholism, same with pornography addiction, any addiction in the world. I don't think you can treat it unless you've needed the treatment at some point, or you've been very close to someone who needed the treatment. Like, my dad was an alcoholic, right? And every time I look at you, mate, you remind me that people can get through it. Yeah. Because obviously he didn't. Do you know what I mean? He's 6 foot under. But I look at you, and all I fucking see is a person that wanted it enough to get out the other side. And like you say, that the psychologist said there's nothing on this earth that can help that man. Well, what helped you wasn't from this earth.
No, it wasn't.
Do you know what I mean? It's much bigger than all of us. But you have to remember it was also you. Yeah, like,
I had the willingness. It was like, but I had to, or I was going to die. And I realised that experience in hospital might have kept me sober for a bit. But I realised at some point the mind was going to come in with that obsession again. Do you know what I mean? And sometimes this is the insanity of my addiction. Sometimes I knew what was going to happen when I picked up that drink. Yeah. And I'd do it anyway.
Oh, of course.
You know.
Addiction is choosing the same chaos time and time again, hoping for peace, isn't it?
Different results and all that, yeah. Yeah, it's mad. It's completely, like, it's mad because, you know, God did hear me in that hospital bed. You know, when I was crying out to him. It was a Bible verse, I don't know which it is. It's in Romans, I think it's 28. It talks about those who love God, he'll always use the bad for the good, or something like that. But I remember listening to it on a sermon. because I become born again at 21, me. And I've had experiences. I remember being in the art gallery in Liverpool when I'd relapsed, and I was looking at a big painting of Jesus, and I was questioning it. I was looking in its eyes, thinking, "Are you the Son of God?" Questioning it in my mind, really thinking deep with it. And it winked its eye down at me like, "Van, I know what I've seen." And I want to share another experience, if you don't mind.
Oh, I don't mind at all. You crack on, hun.
I've been in rehabs up and down the country, and I remember I come out of one particular Christian rehab, which, you know, wouldn't work for me, because like learning the Bible and knowledge and all that, it's got to be changed. My spirit's got to be changing, and my consciousness. So I remember I come out of this rehab, and I felt rejected all my life because of the autism. I really hated anything to do with kind of being autistic, or I felt like it was like unattractive to women and men. Like men wouldn't want to be my friend, and women wouldn't want to go out with me. So I hated myself.
And the autism?
Honestly, yeah, that's the kind of treatment I had in school. So I remember I stormed out the house, and my dad thought I was going to go for a drink. I was about 2 months sober at the time. This is before I got sober. I obviously relapsed since then. And this is the God's honest truth, I would not lie. And I was walking down an hill, and I rang up the guy who visited me in the hospital, the ex-alcoholic, because I was stressed. I had this vision of me walking through Jerusalem, and I seen these 2 lights in the sky, and I thought the world was ending. I thought Jesus was coming back, to be honest. And I said to him on the phone, like, "I've seen 2 angels," and I knew what I was seeing. And I got closer, and as visible as I'm seeing you now, I was seeing two angels of light, and I could see wings on them. And they were like dragon-styled wings. And they were flying synchronicity, in synchronicity, and they were there for about 15 minutes. So I didn't think much of it at the time. Like, it didn't really, shock. I was completely calm. There was no panicking. So I didn't know what to think. Like, I was in shock and I was still on the phone to the guy. He can testify against this now. For it, sorry. So then I was walking home.
Slip of the tongue, because you've been caught.
I was walking home, and to get my dad to tell him to come see these angels. A few days before I was reading about 2 angels, I'd been listening to angel music, and I prayed for my dad to have an encounter and be protected by 2 angels. And my dad seen them as well. And I thought I was going through psychosis at the time. I'm not sure if my dad's seen the wings, but I definitely know what I've seen. It was like goldish in colour. I watched a film called Noah on Netflix, and when the angels are falling to the earth, that's exactly what they look like. And I've seen YouTube clips of them, and it's exactly what they look like. And
your dad saw this as well?
My dad saw it as well, yeah.
Wow.
And you can testify to that, but this is how, people... I'm not saying my dad's got a bad heart, but even after him seeing that, he still doesn't believe. He believes in God, but he's not passionate like I am. He doesn't kind of want to kind of know God, do you know what I mean? He's just like, if it's there, but I don't really need to know. But even after seeing them 2 angels, it didn't convince him. And that's how kind of...
What did he think they were?
He couldn't explain it. He thought he just couldn't explain it. He said, I've seen planes, I've seen lights. He said I couldn't explain it because they were flying synchronicity. They were like playing tag with each other. But I visibly saw the wings on them, and I know what I've seen, and I've seen them flapping in and out like dragons, like a dragon flying, a medieval dragon. And it felt like I was having a glimpse into heaven. I don't believe they were on the earth. But a few weeks later, I seen a TikTok clip of someone in Fingerpost, which is the other end of St. Helens, recording 2 lights in the air, and they were flying the same exact kind of... So they were caught on camera as well, and I'd love to find that TikTok video again.
Audience, do your thing.
But the wings weren't on it, on that video. But I know I seen the wings on them, and for me, I went out of a house and I was so traumatised with God doesn't want me, God doesn't love me, God doesn't hear me because I'm autistic. And I believe them 2 angels were sent to God to say, listen, you're my child. You know what I mean? I love you for who you are. Do you know what I mean? And, I obviously had a bad relationship with Christians, because I'd gone into Christian environments with this condition and separated myself.
Not everyone that's a Christian should call themselves a Christian. I think the love of God, the love of Jesus, the love of faith has to coincide with your love of people. You have to genuinely love people. Otherwise, don't call yourself a Christian. Don't call yourself a Catholic. Just call yourself religious. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
If you're not going to behave in a way that you truly believe Jesus would be proud of you behaving, don't call yourself a Catholic. Don't call yourself a Christian. Don't call yourself fucking no denomination. Just call yourself religious and be a cunt elsewhere.
Yeah, it's
in the nicest way possible.
No, I know what you mean.
I do get it, Lewis. I do get it, man.
Obviously, my ego always comes up, and I battle with my ego every day. But you're dead right. It's love.
It
You
is.
know, God is love.
God is love.
It's not like a part of love, he is love.
He's the whole thing.
So, like, the way I see it is anyone can connect to that love. And you know, it's like love. I believe love is within you, and it's your higher self. And it's like being a child again, because when I was in addiction, I always wanted to be, I'd say, I just want to go back to a child again, that innocence before the world went nasty on me. Do you know what I mean? And when I kind of, what I really meant was that fundamental idea of God that I had as a kid. I wish I could get that back.
It's almost like Father Christmas, isn't it?
Yeah.
When you just wholeheartedly believe like this person is going to love you and see you through everything.
Yeah.
And as you get older, your idea of what men are changes, and God is a man in the theological sense. Do you know what I mean? Your idea of what love is changes.
Yeah.
And then you've got to try and put the two back together, pieced with your previous notion. And it all just feels so subjective based on like the situations you've been in, the heartaches you've been through. It's hard to believe that someone loves you so devotedly when you've constantly been heartbroken throughout your life.
Yeah, because I viewed God how I thought people viewed me.
Yeah.
And what I've learned through this self-discovery is I used to say I hated the world, but really I hated myself.
Oh yeah, I used to say everyone's cunt.
Yeah.
That was my phrase. Everyone's cunt. I used to think it was so cool. I used to think I was effie off Skins.
You know, me kind of interpretation of men was they all wanted to kind of fight me, because that's how I grew up, with a lot of bullying. I grew up in kind of like on the edge of a council estate, so I was always kind and I always had a good heart, but people take that as a weakness, and
I hope anyone that bullied Lewis is watching this right now.
I forgive him, you know. Do you know what I mean? I forgive him from the heart. It's like, I can obviously, I understand they were ill as well. You know, it's like, I've done some bad stuff in my life, what I'm not proud of, do you know what I mean? It's like, you know, who am I to, you know, I used to judge these bullies, and I used to say I hated bullies, but I bullied my mum in alcoholism. Do you get what I mean?
Hurt people, babe.
Yeah, it's very true that, you know, sometimes when I'm really, really, you know, feeling it in worship, I get this revelation, but then when I go out into the world, that self-righteousness can come through. Do you know what I mean? It's like I kind of, you know, I don't wake up every day. Like, my natural thinking is I want to harm people. I want to do physically harm to people. You know, like...
That anger is so deep-rooted that you have to literally pray it away.
Pray it away, yeah.
But you're doing it, and you're showing up, and you're kind, and you forgive people, and you literally radiate love constantly. You know that from the minute we met, we clicked, didn't we, in church? It's like a pair of Lego bricks. I was like, come here, come and sit here.
Yeah. Do you know what? It's like, I've always kind of like, I've always got on with people who are like that. Like, I know me people, do you know what I mean? And I've always struggled. I get on with eccentric people as well, do you know what I mean? And I like kind of... I get on with people who are kind of bubbly, and do you know what I mean? A bit like, kind of like myself, really, you know? So yeah, but I always felt like I weren't a part of a kind of world, because, like I said before, everyone else felt like they could kind of talk and kind of mix in social settings, and I never could. I never thought I could, but through learning these skills now, it's like I'm relearning. I only learned how to cook the other day, how to put a washing machine on. I never knew all this stuff, and I believed all my life, because the teachers in school would tell me, you know, they'd stereotype me. That's one thing I wanted to get into, because I had resentments for years, because I got put into a special needs unit when I was a kid, and they thought, because one person with autism is like that, I'm like that, so they said I could never do anything.
Don't understand the spectrum.
So I believed all my life that, you know, I can't do stuff that other people can do, so there was like a drive in me to prove them wrong. I've learned to cook, you know, I've learned how to, you know, got me provisional now, I'm learning to drive. It's like, there was so much lies spoken over me, and I've had that prophesied over me, and I've had many things prophesied over me. Like, we was in that church 3 weeks ago, and God told me go pray in there, like, it was like a painting of a horse. And God said in my mind, you're that horse. And I knew it was God's voice. And I
you
said,
told me this in church,
Yeah, I said, what do you mean I'm a horse? He said, you're going to carry people. The next week, my mate's mum, who does the music in church, she came up to me with a painting of the horse, and I wanted to buy the painting of the horse. She had, out of all the crowd, you're shining. I want to give you this. And it was when I was coming up to my steps, 3 and 4, I think. And every single step I've done, I've had the opposite kind of oppression. So I know there's a spiritual warfare going on. I know that, you know, and I had 3 people prophesying me over in the space of 24 hours. When I was in that worship night with you and Cameron and all them, I did something where I got me wrists up like this, and I was trying to get these chains off my wrists, and I said, God, I don't want them, and I was throwing them on the floor. I went in church the next day. My ex wasn't in that church at the time. My ex-partner's mum from the church came up to me and said, them chains are already off your wrist.
Wow.
You know what I mean? And before that, 2 people had said, all service we've wanted to talk to you, and God can see that you're hungry for him. Because I was getting doubts in my mind, but I was condemning myself for him, thinking I wasn't really saved. Constant doubts, there's no such thing. When they're saying about healing people, you know, that's all make-believe. Do you know what I mean? That was going on in my head, so I was condemning myself. But I was seeking God in that, I was seeking God, saying, I don't want these thoughts. I want to have the faith that, you know, Apostle Paul had and this, you know. So
and pride does lead to condemnation, doesn't it?
Yeah.
If you're too proud in this world, you'll believe that your view is the only view. And I've had conversations with friends where they've said, there's no way people are having this many experiences with Christ. I've been a follower of Christ for 20 years or 30 years, and I've never had a direct experience with Christ. And I don't know what to say to them because it made me doubt myself too at some points, because obviously I'm a believer in Jesus, do you know what I mean? And I even doubted my faith for a minute and thought, wait, why are they having so many experiences with Christ? Is this acting? Is it fictitious? Are they all leading each other on? Are they all encouraging each other? You know, I always have this constant thought of, what is the difference between speaking in tongues and light language? Where is the difference there?
Yeah.
And I asked a woman in church, you know what she said? God. I was like, brilliant. That explains nothing to me. Help, right? And, you know, I have those thoughts myself. So don't condemn yourself.
No. The mind's carnal to God, it says in scriptures. You know, the mind's an enemy to God. But like you've noticed yourself, well, obviously what you've said, that I had a good heart. So where all the lads who I grew up with could go around hitting people, I never kind of had it in me to do that. I was always a nice, kind-natured guy. But they knew I could box, so they always would, why would, you know what I mean? And I knew these lads couldn't kind of box, but they had the confidence what I never had. So for years and years and
you
years.
You had the anger, but not the ability. Yeah.
So I was very angry inside. It never come out well. The only person I've ever laid hands on is my dad. And I felt really bad after doing that. We were drinking at the time. And I was like, I felt really bad after doing that. I don't think he remembers, to be honest. He was drunk himself, because I grew up drinking with my dad. 14. But it was like, but I felt that's what a man was. Do you get what I mean?
I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah.
Sometimes we grow up and we see masculinity and femininity very different to how it is. And we see it in the very worldly sense of a masculine man is a big guy who can fight, defend himself, you know, swearing, lads. And I actually don't think that's what masculinity is at all. I think masculinity is being strong enough within yourself to be able to hold a room, but also confident enough in yourself to know that you can be calm, that you don't always need to be on alert, because if the worst happens, you can deal with it. And I think the most masculine thing a man can do is make his partner feel safe.
Yeah, I agree.
I do believe that. And if you're the biggest guy in the world and you can fight the whole world, but your partner feels like shit next to you, you ain't no man. Do you know what I mean? That's the way I see it, because if you make anyone else feel inferior in this world on purpose, in the bottom line, you know you ain't shit, because people that know who they are, they make people feel good on purpose. They distill confidence, they distill love, they radiate that into people on purpose. Yeah. And when you don't feel good within yourself, you make other people feel like shit.
It's true. Yeah, like you said, hurt people, don't they? Do you know what I mean?
If you're hurting, shut the fuck up and stop bleeding on people.
Yeah.
You see what I mean?
Yeah.
By all means, ask for help, you know, but there comes a point where you're just going around bleeding out on people. I know I hit that point in my addiction when I was just going out. I was bleeding on everyone. I didn't actually want help. I wanted them just to sit with me. I wanted a lot of them to get off the road with me. Yeah. I was just looking for people to go out and get absolutely twisted up. Yeah. I mean, and then once we're fucked enough, then you can go, oh, life's shit. But then in the same breath, you're going, but we're going to come up with this business idea and this business idea, and we're going to do this, and this. Then you're not going to do any of that shit. But you become these, like, I used to call myself a slumdog millionaire. No, it wasn't slumdog. What was it? I used to call myself a scumbag millionaire. That was it. I'm going to be a scumbag millionaire. I used to say it all the time like it was cool.
Yeah.
Because I was just planning to, like, rob people.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. I was proud of being an alcoholic. It's an identity.
That's it. I was proud of it. I used to go, I'm absolutely mad. I'm an absolute psycho. And it was, like, part of, like, who I was. Like, Sara the psycho. But then I'd hide it. So I'd be an absolute nut job, chatting bare shit and running around everywhere and just being a horrible piece of work. But I wouldn't tell people I was off my head.
Yeah. Do you know what? It's funny you say it. Yeah, I get that. Yeah. It's like that identity. It's like even in school before I ever took drugs, I was studying drugs on Frank, a website called Frank.
Yeah.
And I was obsessed with LSD and psychedelics. And
I know the one.
do you know when you look at kids nowadays who are like 11 and 12, you can't imagine them doing them things.
They do.
You know, but I was so obsessed with changing the way I felt. So something tells me there was always something a bit kind of diseased. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I always felt maladjusted to life. Like, I couldn't fit in. You know, I always felt full of fear as well. 100 forms of fear, intrusive thoughts, OCD. You know.
That's it. Kids are mean though, aren't they? You know, when you're a kid, your school is just a big fight for survival, isn't it?
Yeah.
And like you see the kid that's not the same as other kids, and instead of thinking, how can I learn about this person, the other kids just sort of subjugate you to be ostracised.
Yeah, and I think what my sensitivity I found was a gift from God, you know, because I felt like I had a lot of attributes which God wanted me to have, but because I was brought up in a world where it was very dark, like where I grew up, if the meaner you were, the more friends you had. If you were a nice person, no one really wanted to be around you.
Yeah.
But I always felt like an old soul, me, like I was brought up on like Motown and soul and stuff like that, and Barry White and all that. So I've always got on with older people anyway.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Even now, like, the people I mix with are a lot older than me.
I thought you were going to tell everyone my age then.
I don't even know how old you are.
Okay, good. I was like, shut the fuck up, Lewis. No, I think you speak with substance. That's why you don't say a lot when we're like around other people. Because you won't just talk unless there's substance to it. But then I don't think you realise how you hold yourself commands people to listen when you do talk.
Oh, thank you. I've always felt the opposite. You know, honestly, with my kind of anxiety, it's always been like, I've always felt like I talked and no one listened.
No, your anxiety is your superpower, mate.
Yeah.
The way that you cognitively piece
always felt
things
I had no
together.
voice. That's how I always felt like I had no voice. That's how I always felt. And I remember like having a bad LSD trip once in Manchester. Because what I used to do was I used to drink, and I'd go on trains, and I remember one time having a drink in Wigan and waking up in London in a sleeping bag with an homeless woman. And I was seeing all like red buses going past and all. That's what the stuff I used to do.
Oh, you like?
But when I had a bad LSD trip in Manchester once, all my worst fears were coming out. Like what you just said, like I was talking to people and I was hallucinating. I couldn't hear them talk back to me. It's kind of like going back into my trauma. Do you get what I mean? I always felt unheard, you know, and it always upset me because when you don't feel wanted, you're trying to be someone, you know. So all my dream growing up was always to be famous, and you know, obviously.
Just so the crowds would listen.
Yeah, I just wanted kind of approval, constant validation. If one person didn't like me,
that was it.
In
a
room,
the world.
It was as if the whole world didn't like me.
I get that, yeah.
You
have to work out why they don't like you.
Yeah.
You have to analyse them beyond belief to work out why they don't like you.
I remember the first time I ever got rejected by a girl. And obviously that stuck with me all my life.
Yeah. What happened?
What happened was she was this girl on the campsite when my mum and dad were taking me camping and that. We used to go to a campsite. My mum and dad always had like caravans and campsites and tents and stuff. We were a bit like gypsies, like. But she's this girl, but I fancied her. But obviously we were like, she friend zoned me, is it called? But I always believed it was because in my head I believed it was because of me autism or me ADHD. I remember once, like, without being too graphic on the thing, I was like at a sleepover, do you know what I mean, in the tent, camping, and there was this older lad who she fancied. I remember like getting off with each other. I was just in the bed like that. Do you know what I mean? Like I was only 12. I was only a young kid. Oh, it just stuck in my head for a long time.
You've been rejected, and then right in front of you, she could do that.
Yeah, she didn't know. I don't think she knew. She was only a kid. Like we were both kids. Do you know what I mean? Like I was 12. She was 13.
But in your head at the time, you weren't thinking we're both kids, were you? You were thinking she could do this in front of me.
I thought in my head, like, you know, why doesn't she like me? And I always went through it in my head because, you know, everywhere I went, you know, as soon as people found out I had autism, they'd start talking to me like a baby, and it was quite insulting. It still happens now. That's why I don't tell anyone, and I'm only telling it to the viewers, so that if there's one person out there watching this with autism, they know they're not alone. That's why I've come on to tell you this. But for me, as soon as someone knows I've got autism, this is why I don't tell people. They assume I'm not sharp. They assume like I'm. Do you know what I mean? They assume I'm not like. So that,
I think it affects your IQ. Yeah.
And it's a bit like the only thing I can put it down to is like, and I'm not saying by any means that like I've gone through what people who I'm about to say have been through. I wouldn't compare myself to this, but it's like people who've been through like racism or stereotyping.
Yeah. Well, it's stereotypical.
It is. Maybe I'm just cutting it down a little bit. Maybe it is just like that.
I think you're playing it down a lot.
Playing it down a lot.
If you say to someone, "Oh, I'm
discrimination,"
if you look at someone right and they're dark skinned and you start asking them what curry they like,
I've always said that analogy.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's you can't just assume.
No.
People assume a lot, right? But when you assume, you make an ass out of you and me. Do you know what I mean? Like this. Why didn't you laugh? I thought that was quite funny.
Sorry.
Sorry. No. When you assume things about people, you're just projecting your internal outward, aren't you?
Yeah.
Because if you're that insecure and thick that you can take someone at face value and think that's all they are, you're projecting your own assumption. So it's like when you tell someone, as you say, that you've got autism, right, or ADHD, and they immediately go, "Ah."
Yeah.
Like, what do you mean? Oh,
exactly.
what the fuck do you mean? I think when people look at people with autism, right, and they assume that you have a low IQ,
yeah,
it says more about their IQ. To be honest, if you don't know enough about autism, shut up about it.
Exactly.
If you don't know enough about ADHD, don't comment on it. I know absolutely fuck all about Rio de Janeiro, so I will very rarely have a conversation about Rio de Janeiro because I don't know anything. So if someone brings it up, I'm more inclined to listen than I am to comment. Because we've got to be the student for 90% of our life. But because people get so used to just fucking talking, because the internet makes it easy to talk, doesn't it? And like, everyone's got something to fucking say. Everyone's got a podcast these days, haven't they? So like, they treat it like they have to have a word. If you say to someone, "I've got autism," and they just go, "Right."
Yeah. It's usually like that comment as well. It's like similar to race, like, oh my, you know,
my mate's
I've got a
autism.
friend who's
I love that. It's like when someone says they're gay.
It's a lot of like kind of like, especially when you say it around like mothers and that, they'll go, "Oh, my son's got it, my nephew's got it." Do you know what I mean? And it's kind of like, I know they're trying to kind of they don't understand. They don't understand what they're doing. Do you know what I mean? But for years, I had to work on this. Like, the best way I can describe it, and I don't mean to like compare myself to kind of what these people have been through, but I can kind of understand why someone from a different race can kind of hate my race with what I've been through with people who aren't autistic. I can understand it. Like, I can understand the anger, and
it's irritating, isn't it?
It's like I thought for a while I just want to be on a planet with autism.
Just give me Pluto autistic planet, please.
It was a mad conception, because I used to judge people and put them in boxes and go, "He's not got it, she's got it." And I remember there's been times where I've gone, he's not got it, he's one of them normies, and he's turned out to have it. Do you know what I mean? So it's like, my judgment isn't always right.
You started the secularisation because it'd be done to you. Yeah. But it's very irritating, isn't it? Because when you go, "Oh yeah, by the way, I've got autism," or "By the way, I've got ADHD," and then someone goes, "Oh, my mum's cat's got that." Do you know what I mean? Like, why have you got to tell me one person that you also know that might have? What do you mean? Or you go, "Oh yeah, by the way, I've got Asperger's," and you go, "Oh, I was speaking to a taxi driver the other day about Asperger's." Yeah. Why? Why? Because then, in my head, and this could just be the autism, in my head I think, great, the next person you meet that's got autism, you're going to tell them about me now. Do you know what I mean? Now I'm going to be part of your autism cue card. Yeah. That's just where my head goes now. Because, so for example, my mate, right, she's brilliant, ADHD'd out of her fucking brain though. Right, she couldn't sit and have a conversation like we do now. I have to literally go, "Oi," every like 3 minutes, because she'll go somewhere. Like, she fucks off. She should definitely be medicated, but doesn't like it. And she has to start conversations with new people with, "By the way, I've got ADHD." Just so they don't think she's rude.
Yeah.
Because you'll start talking to her, and then within a minute, you'll watch her just fuck off somewhere. And then, right? And we were in Asda about 6 months ago, and she was at the till, and she went, sorry, by the way, I've got ADHD. And two people, not even one person, two people, one woman went, oh, my son's got that. And then a woman from the fucking till behind us was like, oh, my grandson's on the pathway. And I was like, why are we doing this?
It's like, see, subject of identity, innit? It's like, I'll be honest with you, I don't go around saying it much now because it's not who I am. Like,
No.
it was an identity for years.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'd act it.
Yeah, because you identified as someone that people were shutting out.
Yeah.
So you wanted to get in there first and be like, by the way, autism.
Yeah. And, you know, I've learned, you know, I can be around people who haven't got it and they want me around them. But for years I thought they didn't want me around them.
It's not the bubonic plague, Lewis, is it?
Honestly, no, but that's like how me kind of,
Yeah.
oh, it was bad. There probably is a bit of me which probably does get on better with, like I said, eccentric people. But that's just who I am as a person, I think. Like, I used to put labels on everything. Do you know what I mean? I was constantly looking for identity. I didn't know who I was. When I said I didn't know if I was a woman or a man, do you know what I mean? I didn't know who I was. I used to kind of just live in a fantasy world. Do you know what I mean?
But do you not think a lot of people with autism live in a fantasy world? Because it's disassociation.
Pretty much.
You feel so exiled from...
I always had done.
Yeah.
From a child.
That's it. And when you have autism, ADHD, any spectrum like disorder, you do tend to disassociate more because you don't feel that you are connected to everybody else. So you will create your own little fantasy land.
Yeah.
And that then leads on to when you're older, being more inclined to fall into addiction because addiction helps you to disassociate in the same way that daydreaming did.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just a little step up. It's daydreaming on steroids, isn't it? Like disassociation and daydreaming, well, it's got some similar characteristics to it.
Yeah, you know what? It's like you said, it's like I said, all I can say is when I found the alcohol and when I found the kind of the drugs, because I had a spell of crack cocaine and stuff, and I dabbled in, you know, I've done heroin and stuff, and I've done every drug going. The alcohol was always the one, which kind of was like the master.
It's so fucking accessible.
Yeah, I don't know what it was about the alcohol. It was just, I preferred it, to be honest. I know a lot of addicts don't like drink, but I loved it, and
I liked it. Yeah.
It's kind of like, and this is like, I'm not trying to kind of religiousise the podcast. This is just what my experience is.
Mate, speak your truth. You're fine.
In the end of my alcoholism, looking back, I was possessed. Everything I was attracted to was demonic. I was attracted to women who were following. I wasn't attracted to women from church. There was like this kind of sickness in me. Like it was like the devil had an hold on me. Do you get what I mean? And kind of he'd lied to me since a kid. You know, I remember being a kid, and I remember, you know, being dragged under the bed by a demon screaming in my face. I kind of think the devil always knew.
Sorry, whoa, you remember what?
When I was a kid, I remember a demon dragging me under the bed and screaming in my face, and I wasn't asleep. And it was a minion one. It was only about this size. I've seen 3 demons in my life. I've seen them in people. When I did my step 3, I was coming out of a meeting, and I was in Rainhill, and I was going past them, and I know what I seen. I was sober, and the reason I know it wasn't psychosis or drugging, I wasn't on drugs. I've done a lot of drugs and never seen demons. And this woman's face morphed into it was like Hollywood, pitch black eyes, like a reptilian greyish face with no life in its face. Its face went slimmer, and then it went back to normal. It was like seeing the angels. There was no fear. I knew what I was seeing, kind of thing. It's kind of like you're so in shock when you see something like that. You don't have time to kind of get a camera out, and I've had experiences like that, so I know the spirit world's real. Yeah, I've seen the shadow people. I've seen, you know, but in the end of my drinking, when I say I was like, even the women I was into, it was demonic. Do you get what I mean? There wasn't like anything that rebelled against God, kind of. Sorry to be a bit rude here, but sexually, do you know what I mean?
It would arouse you if it would also hurt you.
Yeah, it was kind of like, you know...
There's a fine line between pleasure and pain, isn't there? That's the thing.
Yeah, you know, I remember speaking to a girl from church, and I wasn't interested in the fact that she was so full of the Holy Spirit. It turned me off. I wanted a girl who was full of money, all the family were drug dealers. Do you know, I wanted that kind of darkness. And that's all I knew, me drinking. And I've had to pray constantly for that to go on. It still comes up now and again. I'm attracted to the wrong... Sometimes I can get attracted to the wrong kind of woman. But I know the difference between lust and honestly, I mean this when I say this, like, I'm not perfect at it, but I can treat women now like a sister. Like, I can look at a woman the same way I look at a man, kind of with no luster. And that's took a lot of praying, because the pornography from watching it from a very early child, and people don't realise the dangers of pornography. It really messed my mind up. You know, it twisted my mind up, you know.
Do you think it does that to most men and they just
It
don't
probably
even realise?
does, yeah. It probably does. You know, I mean, everything you watch on them sites is kind of like dark. It's not two women making love usually. It's not usually a man and woman making love.
Freudian slip, babe.
It's not usually a man or woman making love. It's usually something quite like kind of dark, like
it's so normalised.
Affairs and cheating. Do you know what I mean? It's usually that type of category.
Yeah, you're not wrong. You know,
what I mean?
It's so normalised though, isn't it? But when you, especially as a young lad, you're encouraged to watch porn. You know, all your mates are doing it, and you're encouraged to, which bird can you finger? Who can you neck? You know, I've been the bird. Do you know what I mean? So like, and you do get encouraged to do that sort of thing. And then you are right. When you look at it, it is all quite dark, isn't it? Like it's this, you're going to be stuck in a washing machine and this random geezer's going to put his knob in your ass. Do you know what I mean? Or like come and cheat on your missus, or like, hey, look, it's a gangbang of 12 people. Yeah. It isn't making love. It isn't sex in that romantic setting, is it? And then what that does is it does carry it on. So how do you reckon having that pornography addiction, would you say it was addiction?
It was a part of me rock bottom.
Okay.
So when the girl come into my hospital bed, the nurse, I wasn't looking at her like a woman. Yeah. It was in a pornographic lens.
You're looking at her as a piece of meat.
It was. Do you know what? I know people have said that it wasn't even just a piece of meat. It was kind of like I wanted to get to a point in my life where I could look at that woman and I know what love is, because I still don't get in relationships now because I don't know the difference. Like how do you do that? You know, with love and not lust, and kind of when that girl came into my room, I realised like I missed out on a lot of like kind of that growing up. Mm-hmm. You know, my dating stopped at 15 because alcohol was my wife.
Yeah,
alcohol's my god. You know what I mean? I turned my will and my life over to alcohol every single day of my life, and also everything that I was into was surrounded by alcohol. So all the musicians I listened to were all dead at 27. Amy Winehouse, Kurt Cobain. I looked up to addicts and alcoholics.
The 27 Club.
I idolised heroin addicts. I wanted to kind of... People say they didn't say in class, I want to be an alcoholic. Personally, I did. I remember being in school talking about Stella. Like, I couldn't wait to drink. Like, I seen what it did.
I totally feel that, yeah.
I seen what it did for my mum. And I was always interested in changing the way I felt. I always had that curiosity, do you know what I mean? And my first addiction was energy drinks, and it just kind of spiraled from there. And I mean, I was nearly dead through the alcohol, and I mean, like, I was physically dependent on it. You know, and there's some horrible horror stories I can tell you on here, do you know what I mean? But it's like, the biggest prison I've ever been in is up here. I've never been to jail, but I have up here. Do you know what I mean? And I never thought I could get out of that. I thought, that's me done now. I put so much I was in relationships where I was getting, you know, abused, really, and I had no self-confidence. They were like my God. If I didn't text, panic. I hated myself. I didn't even know I did. Just had no self-respect whatsoever.
Totally just...
Do you know what I mean?
Putting everything externally.
Yeah. Feeling less than... Do you know what I mean?
But that's what addiction does. It gives you the mind of a... Sorry. No, that is what addiction does. It gives you the mind of like a god, right? But the body of a prisoner. Like, you think you're above everything the minute you can get that resource. But you also simultaneously feel below everything. Yeah. So you keep chasing that same fire, not even realising you're leaving yourself with 3rd-degree burns.
Yeah.
And everyone around you also worships that same god. So, like, when you're an addict, you're surrounded by addicts. When you're someone that's addicted to pornography, usually you have a lot of sexualised people around you, or if you don't have them then you had them. Do you know what I mean? I know a lot of young lads, lads that come to me for coaching that were young lads that started watching porn. Some of them at 12 years old, some of them at 11 years old. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. And we don't realise... Dangerous. As young lads, I don't think they realise in a lot of ways they groom each other. Like, stop telling your mate that just wants to play Minecraft to go and wank. Do you know what I mean? Like, genuinely, you know, one minute you're on the Heelys and the next minute you're encouraged to twat your genitals over a random woman's pair of tits that you've never even met on a screen. Do you know what I mean? Stop trying to groom your mates. And it is a bigger thing than we think. And I've got a little boy now, so I always think, fuck me. Do you know what I mean? But it is a bigger thing than we think, because girls aren't encouraged in the same way by their mates in school. But the lads are. And then by turn, the lads then encourage the girls. And then we have an epidemic of, adolescent on adolescent grooming.
Yeah.
How old were you when you lost your V?
15.
Were you?
And the girl, she probably watch this podcast, but the girl who I lost it to, she was in love with me. And at the time, I'll be honest, I wasn't really serious. She's got a boyfriend now and all that, so I don't, but 15, yeah. Lovely girl as well, really nice, friendly, most politest girl, but I didn't know what love was.
You were just interested in doing the deed?
Yeah.
What do you reckon pushed you to that?
It was kind of just being young. Do you know what I mean? I can't even put it down to anything traumatic. I just kind of was just being young.
The pornography? Was it the friendship groups? Everyone just
pornography? Yeah. I mean, I never really grew up in a Christian household, so my dad's a bit of a man's man. Do you know what I mean? So he would get in, son. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
He'd go buy me condoms for me. Do you know what I mean?
Really? Yeah.
Go ahead, yeah, go ahead, lad. Do you know what I mean? My dad's a bit more like me mate than me. Do you know what I mean? We're like mates and that. Yeah, growing up, like I said, but then I always felt less than women. So that's where obviously I started preferring older. I don't mean to sound egotistical. This is just my truth. I felt like I was doing an older woman would want me because I was young, 25.
Oh, so you were doing them a service.
Yeah, and I experimented growing up. And I'm not trying to upset or offend anyone, but.
No, go on.
Homosexuality, because I didn't feel wanted by women, so I went towards that then, and I believed I was kind of, bisexual for a lot of years. So when someone first introduced God to me, which was my first ever spiritual guide, who was my sponsor, I was very, very anti-God. So the minute someone mentioned God, I'd come out with really offensive things. No such thing as God. My higher power to begin with was a tree, and someone said, "What happens if you cut that tree down?" I said, "You can't even see your God." That's how prideful I was.
Yeah.
Hated religion. I remember I got given, this is how I become born again, so I got given this book called Purpose Driven Life by Rick Warren. And I read it for 10 days. And my sponsor said to me, "Whatever you do, keep reading this book." And I was ringing up saying, "He's trying to brainwash me. I'm not turning into one of him. I'll leave the meetings." And on the 10th day, the Holy Spirit come in my room at 5 a.m. and just bang. It was the best feeling. It was like being a child again in school. Going to church, and I became a born again believer, and I knew that I'd met God, and I'd written on a whiteboard the date I found God.
What was the date you found God?
One of my biggest regrets is I wiped it off when I relapsed.
Fuck off, Lewis.
No, honestly, but when I met God, nothing went perfect. I didn't understand, so I didn't really walk away from sin. I was still up to all sorts, and Matt caught up with me, and he ended up relapsing after 16 months of being sober. I was in my best house, living on my own. And then 5 years up to now have been absolute hell, and I mean hell. I was only saying my mum and dad didn't want anything to do with me. I was coming up to Liverpool and spending all. If I had money and I had a crack pipe, I'd spend every single last bit on crack, and I'd know as soon as that tenner was running out and I was having my last pipe, was a bit of I knew what was coming.
It was about to crash.
It was about to crash, yeah. And